I'll call to order. We do expect Teresa to join us at 6:08 PM. Confirmation of appropriate meeting notices,
Yes, the City of Milton, the Town of Milton, and Milton Fire Station.
and on the agenda here tonight.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by John Jennings, and seconded by Bill.
I have a question about the agenda.
Okay,
Now, of course, I wasn't here at the last meeting, but it seemed to me that when I was watching the video that we were going to have something on an upcoming agenda as far as the possibility of paying for part of the certifications. Are we putting that?
and I think we acted on that, didn't we?
We did, so it's now at the chief's level to be able to create administrative guidelines regarding how that will look. I expect we're gonna hear a little bit about the status of it in the chief's report tonight.
Oh, okay, because there wasn't any mention at the meeting as to where those funds were coming from, and I guess that's why I thought it was gonna come back.
Well, that's a good point, but we did act on allotting up to $12,000. And to your point,
Okay.
where in the budget do we, pull that from? Yes,
The availability would have been from the reserves
yeah.
Okay,
for this year.
all right.
I don't know
Thank
if
you.
that was part of was
I think it was actually.
part of the motion. No,
It
There was
wasn't
no
part of the
talk of
motion,
where it was coming from
but
in the
yeah.
motion.
I think Linda's right. We need to resolve that at some point. But,
Well, I just didn't know if we needed to have, so do we need to change our agenda for tonight, or do we, what are you thinking?
Action item can't.
yeah, not in an action item. I would suggest we can do that in the future, and we've got a half a year to do that, but yes, but good point. So on the motion for the agenda, or the agenda, yes. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. On the minutes from May 18th,
I move approval.
Second.
motion by Bill, seconded by John. Any further discussion on the motion? And all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried.
I guess abstain. I have to abstain, though.
Okay, motion carries, one abstain. Public participation, anything public wants to bring?
Could you use one of the other mics, because I'm sure that Inga's probably got this
I think
recorded.
there's a switch on that one, right there.
There you go.
So I've been the EMS director since April of 2013. I find this very disturbing. So unfortunately, I have wrote my letter of resignation and given it to Chief Parker. Thank you.
No, disappointed in hearing that. A couple of points on that. We did ask for input on this quote that we had. I didn't receive any input on conflicts.
I didn't hear everything that he said.
I think that, I don't know, because I cannot speak for Pete, but this whole process, I think Pete has felt like he's been left out, and Chief Pickering, who's not even our chief at this time or participates in anything with us at this time, is making these decisions when Pete has done this for us for 20, at least 13 years he's been in.
He has expressed
think-
his frustration recently on how we handled contracting the ambulance to be built. But prior to that, I asked for input. And initially, I had no input whatsoever. Then there was input on side entrance and rear lighting. And other than that, there's been no other direct, specific input. But he's definitely frustrated with that process. And the reason I asked for that input before we suggested ordering one or meeting some sort of a spec was exactly to the point that he just made, that he could be involved in the speccing the ambulance. We had a spec in front of us. We were, the logic was that we would use an ambulance that Edgerton would use unless it didn't make sense, which is why I asked for input. So I understand that he's frustrated about that, but he claimed expertise in speccing ambulances, And yet I didn't get any details before we committed to something. And quite frankly, I don't think it's too late to change the spec.
No, the chassis came in, but it wasn't the actual box, right?
I think
What?
I'm gonna back it up, and what I heard just now was that his frustration was that a person who was not our chief alerted him to the fact that the chassis was in, and then they had a conversation about that chassis. And Chief Pickering is not our chief. So that is of concern, I guess, in my estimation, and would love to see if we could rectify the situation and get to the bottom of how it was that Chief Pickering is kind of stepping into our role here.
I think this would have been a good opportunity for him to have said what issues he had with it, even at this late stage. Because I think we can address
I don't think it was the
things.
chassis itself, Chair. I believe that it was the fact that we had a person who was not our chief that was directing the conversation.
I thought that we were purchasing in joint agreement with Edgerton so that we could in fact hopefully get a better price and make sure that everything is all together.
Oh, that was part of it. It's not the whole.
Yeah,
of it-
because
of it.
Pete did a presentation to the commission prior to any Edgerton, I mean, was it a year prior to this? I'm not sure the time frame, but he had the whole thing spec'd out and did a presentation on the ambulance. So I think his frustration is he did all that work, he did present it, and then.
Which would have gave
nobody
him good
came to him.
qualifications to compare the specs.
Right.
And it didn't bring that forward. So,
Can we put this on another agenda? Maybe, I don't know if we need to go into closed session or not.
How would you like to label the topic for future
Um,
discussion?
Future, well, how about if we just say, future requests from current personnel with regards to the ambulance and other equipment replacement?
I'm not sure that that would cover everything that they might be pointing to or being concerned about.
But this is not, I mean, I don't know if, because we're in public participation right now, so I don't think that we can really discuss this unless we want to take it down to the chief's report.
No, I think it warrants a future agenda item, certainly. Teresa, if you didn't hear when you came in, Pete Morey cites that he's given his resignation. Was there a written form of that?
I don't have it at this time. He gave it to, Chief Parker. Chief Parker's not here right now, so I think it's a bad time for us to probably lose Pete also.
Yep,
It's a bad time to lose anybody.
all right. Any other public participation? Otherwise, we'll move on in the agenda to old business. An update regarding the Union Local 580 contract. Have we learned anything more?
I'm sitting in for Jeremy tonight. He was out of town for his other full-time job. Nothing new to report on the local 580 contract. We haven't heard anything.
Can I ask a question? The local 580, how far out does that union go? Is that like this, is that district or is that county or, I was just wondering, I was talking to a state representative last night and,
So it's the Janesville Firefighters Union So it's primarily City of Janesville firefighters. Local 580 is a branch of the International Association of Firefighters Union. So, but 580, usually what happens when you have smaller departments with full-time employees that want to unionize a larger department in the area, we'll take them into their union up in the Madison area. Local 311 has numerous suburbs of Madison firefighters in their union as well. Janesville 580 also represents Edgerton. They'll represent our people when it's all said and done. And recently, I know they just went up and talked to Fort Atkinson and Jefferson. So I don't know where they're at. That's not anything that I'm privileged to, but I know that they are talking about representing them as well. Yep.
Otherwise, we'll move on then to update regarding the Department UTV.
The UTV, the new one, has been ordered. Like everything else, it's gonna take a long time to get it. It won't be here until the end of September. We're not gonna attempt to sell the old one until we have the new one ready to go.
So same status as last month then?
Yep. Yep.
I think there was a question last month about the trailer. Do you know if that's been spec'd out at all?
That I don't know.
Moving on to old business, C, discussion and possible action regarding the proposed review of shared paramedic services, the MOU between Edgerton and Milton. Is there any updates on that at all that we?
No updates that I've been made aware of. Was nothing in my report from Chief Parker to report on tonight. So as far as I know, nothing new to report there.
I think we're looking at the legalities of being able to do it and just haven't heard anything further on that.
Yeah, I would say that's a good way to put it, yes.
Have we heard anything from Edgerton at all? You, Anissa, or from the Edgerton Fire District about what they're looking at, their votes? Because I thought that they had a meeting before our last meeting.
Yes, but I don't know, I don't understand that they've discovered anything new on the law about it as well.
Some parts of this too will require state approval, and it's a challenge getting them to respond in a timely manner, so I don't believe we've heard anything new from the state either.
So not having any new updates on that at this time. We certainly want to follow up on the union contract and this MOU and the future agenda. New business, no action items there. Do we know of any new business that we should be discussing in the future? At this time, at least.
The only thing that I could think of would be the funding.
Oh, the funding of the training or education, addressing our budget,
Main amendment, yeah. Reallocating.
yeah, so,
Want to make sure we have all of our ducks in a row there.
so a budget amendment at some point, to discuss the funding of education.
I have something that I would just like to bring up. When I was down at the fire department earlier this week, I noticed that there's a place when you come in the door where our former chief banker had started a little secure area there, but they didn't get any window. And I think that that's something that we need to look at for our existing building, especially since we're getting the county numbers for COVID are going up again. And I just feel like if anybody wanted to walk in that building and hop over that counter, they could. I just think it's a safety thing for Jenny, and I don't think it should be that expensive to do something. Has everybody seen that?
I haven't, but was that part of a plan initially, do you know?
Yeah, it was, when when Chief Banker was here, we, redid the front office, cause we put in like, so when people come in when they used to come in the front door, they came right into the office, so we put a stop there, so it's a counter, you know, so there is area. Then his second phase was going to be like, the safety glass there, like all the other offices around have, so that it would stop the flow of any traffic coming in. He left and we got another chief, so that wasn't the priority there. Plus COVID hit and I wasn't there.
Well, maybe for a future meeting, we can discuss the opinion and recommendations from the chief on doing something there, if anything.
Thank you.
Moving on to the fire chief's report. Chris, what do you have?
This thing's working. 94 calls for service. For training, we trained on hose line advancement, SCBA, use and maintenance, engine operations, pump operator operations, and procedures. EMS training was patient assessment. On a side note, we did meet our training people, met with Edgerton's training people last Saturday to kind of discuss how we could do some training together. It's obviously a challenge, finding a location where we're not taking too many people out of our response area. They have the same issues we do in regard to off-duty people coming back in for training, so it's kind of hard to get that together, but we're going to work on that. We did send a crew of 7 people over to Edgerton this last Monday night. They had a speaker come in to talk to us about electric vehicles, mostly the Tesla. Just talked about some things as far as in vehicle fires involving those vehicles, car accidents, the challenges that they present as far as extricating patients. So it was a nice little class. It was nice to get invited over there for that. We did fill the full-time firefighter paramedic position. The person we hired was Jarek Clifford. Unfortunately, we stole him from Edgerton. He should be starting somewhere around June 20th. There's some things we got to get straightened out there, but he is fully qualified, interviewed very well, and we're looking forward to having him with us. The other 2 new full-time firefighter MPO EMT positions, that process is wrapping up. We did get qualified applicants from internally, so we're hoping to have those positions filled and have them up and going by July 1st. So you kind of heard from Pete that the ambulance chassis has made it to the production floor, and there was a meeting today. I wasn't there, but apparently they talked about I think they talked primarily about paint scheme and some specs as far as the rest of the ambulance goes. In regard to the what you were talking about earlier in regard to paying for people to go to paramedic school, we're still working on the requirements for those applicants that would like to take advantage of that. And then the question that came up is obviously how are we going to pay for it? So I guess we'll keep doing what we're doing, and then we'll wait till the next meeting until.
Well, we made a commitment to the funds. It's just
Right.
budget-wise, we've got to address it.
Yeah, I mean, that amount of money is more than our entire training budget, so we'll have to find that money somewhere. But
And I did send an email to Pete and to Jeremy about some funding that is available, not specifically about that, but in general about funding that has become available from the federal government that could be used for a wide variety of things. I don't know if they read through that or not. Okay. It was new funding that came out just recently. Maybe I'll read through it. I did not read through it. I just forwarded it to them, so.
no, I think you're on track. One of the questions that came up last time was we do get.
Wow.
This new grant that you're talking about, I think,
Okay. All right.
That's about it, other than, we are bringing back the Guns and Hoses softball game on July 1st, and we're gonna beat the cops.
Any questions of Chris yet here? And otherwise, we'll move on to the president's report.
I guess I got one thing to kind of follow up on some of the comments that were made earlier about some of the concerns regarding input. I think that's something that we'll have a conversation on in the very near future. I would think yet this week would make it a priority to try to get to the bottom of what exactly is the contributing factor to some of those concerns, because it's been a process and there was a lot that has happened. So we'll work through it and we'll figure it out.
I guess I'm thinking that we brought forth the opportunity to get input, and I don't want to do anything to delay getting the ambulance any more than what we're already experiencing with shipping and all of that stuff. I mean, this week, is
We're
that a
not talking about
promise?
the ambulance right now. This is kind of stems a little deeper into some of the planning processes that have taken place regarding the consolidation. I think the ambulance is just one thing that took place in the greater scheme. So, I think that we need to have some conversations with staff and ensure that we're all on the same page.
So are we,
If we're not, which
are we
sounds
looking
like
at
it.
another meeting this week? then?
I think it would be the chair working with the staff or having small committee. That's traditionally been working with staff at this point. to
Yeah, we
vet
don't
out
have anything
some of this.
scheduled right now with staff, but we've been meeting, and we want to meet yet again
Uh-huh,
more.
yeah.
I'm not sure what we would focus on, but we absolutely want to have the relationship with the staff so that there's an opportunity to say what they want to say.
And I
So
guess
do we
that's why
wanna-
I'm a little confused at some of the input that's come through, as of tonight anyways, with transparency and being involved in the process, because as far as I was aware, that had been happening.
I,
And if it hadn't been happening, I'm not sure at what point in the process it hasn't been happening.
that's
That's a
what,
problem if it has, so.
thank you. That's exactly what I was thinking, is I thought we were being transparent about everything, so. So then, do you want, do you want us to do a motion for a subcommittee, or what do you think?
I think he's
Jerry?
already saying that there is a subcommittee that's working on it.
Yeah, we've been meeting with staff, and everybody seems to appreciate it, and so I think we'll continue to try to meet and provide an opportunity to, bring things to surface that might exist.
And who was on that? Is that you
Well-
and Anissa, or is it now you and Beth? I'm sorry, I'm just.
There was a
Teresa-
representative from the town board and the city, and then Anissa, Al, and representatives from the fire department.
So there's been several people in the room each time. Teresa's been there, I've been there, Denise has been there, Al's been there, yes, and like you said. And several members of the staff have been at those staff meetings. I don't know what to call them other than staff meetings, but I think everybody appreciates how those are made up and the atmosphere as best we can put together, I think.
Well, excuse my questions. I just, now that we're starting a new year and everything, I just wanted to make sure I just am
So let's set up another one and sometime in the next couple weeks or whatever's reasonable or feasible.
Would it be feasible to do one like next Monday, the 20th?
I don't know, well, we have to. Usually we I'd probably put that on Jenny to see who's available and try to coordinate timing. It's been kind of a collaboration of,
Yeah, Jenny's done
Input.
it because she has to check with Al, Anissa, all three battalion chiefs and chiefs.
I'll
Yeah.
send out an email tomorrow to see available dates for everyone and see if there's one in there or two in there. Every once in a while, one person is missing. We've been lucky a couple times to get everybody there, but
yeah.
Yes, he's already.
But let's continue that and try to keep doing that. And we said that when we left the last meeting. Let's try to continue these. Anything else? President's report? Is there anything,
the president is not here tonight, but there was nothing
so
new.
there's none this evening,
To
no
report.
President's report this evening. General items, any general items otherwise?
Are they doing the ATV raffle for the association this year?
We are not.
Okay. Can we raffle off the old ATV?
Any other general items? I have one, but is there any other general items? So just recently in the last, well, part of the last week actually, the status of the central government agreement between 10 municipalities on a potential expansion of the Edgerton district. Last Thursday night at Edgerton's regular monthly meeting, their board saw it for the first time, their attorney's draft of an IGA. Randy Pickering told me that the board, I wasn't able to be there, and they did it in closed session anyway, so. They said that they did discover some dotting some I's and crossing some T's stuff, and tweaked a couple of things in it, and the board wanted to address a couple of things. I don't know what they were. They have a special meeting scheduled for tomorrow night, I believe, to review their input as a result with their attorney. And they anticipate that will be the last review that their district board will have on it, and that they will pass it on to our municipal attorneys for any critique or input on it. So the city's attorney and the town's attorney to review input. And I think that's an opportunity for, if anybody wants to be part of discussing with the attorneys, you know, if there's some availability of looking at the draft and input. Once the process was intended, once we think the attorneys think that this is a smart draft, then we would discuss it municipal-wise. What's not clear is the best format for that. Is it closed session yet for heavy critique by city councils, town boards, before trying to involve everybody else? And we've expressed an interest and a need for staff's input on it. But the thought seems to be, let's get what we think is a logical or a good draft to ask for more input on it. 'Cause
So
right now
get
they're
it to
trying
the
to-
final stages.
They're trying to get it to
where-
legally
okay.
work right now. So I anticipated for a long time, there's a couple of real challenges in how do you put words to addressing certain things in a potential agreement. One of them is, how would you make a management transition? How do you, and when would that be a good time to do it? You know, so let me just say, one thought would be, you don't make any transition whatsoever, you don't share any services whatsoever through an agreement until all of this infrastructure is built and the keys are ready for whoever's gonna manage. Another thought is, there would be an interim transition of management, and you would pick a magic date of some sort. And the district would agree that's in the best interest of everybody to transition before infrastructure is built, because it's gonna be 2 years before we get infrastructure built. So there's a appetite to make, if there is gonna be a transition, or if there is gonna be a consolidation, the transition maybe should happen before waiting till all the infrastructure is ready to, inhabit. So that, I think, is the really hard part of figuring out how to make that transition. The rest of it, a large part of it was identified in the petition for membership. But then how do you make it happen? So I haven't been part of any discussions on how that would happen, why it would happen, when it would happen. That's what I'm really curious about in a draft IGA, is how do you expect to make this happen and function from a management perspective on a date that's magically picked. And I expect a lot of input on that. Once we see that language, I anticipate and want a lot of input on that. So that's my update on where that's at right now. Like I said, tomorrow night they have a special board meeting on trying to pass it to the attorneys for another phase of critique. Anything other general items? If not, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Go ahead
I don't have a second.
Okay, so you seconded it, Teresa?
Yes,
Motion by John.
just that I cannot be there on July 20th, so I will hope to have Larry. He's available. I
Okay.
don't know if everyone else will.
And as we discussed in earlier meetings, the intent would be to be here still at 6 o'clock? Does that make sense? All right. All in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.